here I am again taking myself so seriously. I guess the more you think about it, the more you try to figure out what it is that you are trying to get at. I actually, earlier today on my way to work, I created a podcast in my car. I hooked my headphones up. I had my phone on, the option to create a voice memo. And, I started talking about what it is that I've been going through. Basically, the last quarter or last third of this year, and I found it to be really interesting. Because it was very direct, very on topic, very straightforward, and it has a lot to do with conditioning altogether. So I thought it was very in depth, and I realized that a lot of it was very personal. A lot of it was basically me giving advice to the listener in regards to my own experience with conditioning and how it all works, and basically, like, metaphorically, the psychological layers that are created as a result of conditioning, and how to break out. To break out of that, you have to basically be aware of these layers and realize that to make honest progress and honest change, you've got to be. There will be your subconscious mind, the habitual mind. It has a tendency to give excuses as to why it shouldn't break out of these layers of years of conditioning. And what is most interesting about it is that it's not difficult to do these things. It requires awareness. It requires the present moment. It requires a lot of, like I said, conscious awareness. Honestly, it's really not difficult. And to come to that point, I guess to come to the point of wanting to change, it requires a lot of realizing that you're just tired of the way that things have been. That's the start of it, and it ultimately goes to you wanting it enough. You want that change in your life, and I'm honestly really interested in the perspective of how this all is for myself, because I see how it looks from afar. And sometimes I think to myself, wow, man, like, this is how you're looking at this. And maybe I never really would have thought that this is the way that things would be. And I find on a day-to-day basis, even an hour by hour or an hourly basis, things are changing. Things are really improving. My thought process, my actions, and the reason being is because I am becoming conscious of it all. I'm bringing the idea of awareness of the present moment into the picture, implementing that idea. And as a result, it's like instant karma, in the sense that if I say something that I'm borderline not okay with, I will instantly correct myself, and the transformation begins. It's really cool, and it's different. It's out of this world. I'm very impressed with how things are coming to be, and I'm really happy that my life is the way that it is. Honestly, I've experienced what it means to struggle with addiction. I suppose both chemically and visually, if that makes sense. Not really to say what it is that I was visually addicted to, but once I realized that it was an addiction, I realized altogether that I had to extinguish it from my life, or abolish it, whatever word you want to use. This is more of just a self-reflection, honestly. It's a self-reflection, and it's also me giving advice to whoever's listening. Creating change in your life is not impossible. It's also, contrary to what your mind may lead you to believe, it's not difficult. See, the thing is, when it comes to creating change in your life, because the habitual mind is so used to the way that things have been for years and years and years of unconscious conditioning, from when we're just a kid, through to being a teenager, young adulthood and all that stuff. There's this idea to the mind that things should just stay the way they are. And if you want change in your life, the mind is going to try to label that as a difficult thing, because it is used to the way that things have been, and it doesn't really want to try otherwise, if that makes sense, because it's used to that habitual way of being. And this creates the illusion that what it is that you're trying to achieve is difficult, only because the mind is labeling it as that. If instead you can become present, you can become consciously aware of what's happening in your mind, be the observer, and realize that there is no such thing as difficult. There is just what is happening, what it is that you're perceiving, and realize that if you just let be what is, you can look at it in a whole different way. This is me breaking down the transformation process, and how these supposed challenges or difficulties can be subsided, because it is possible to create real, long-lasting change in one's life. Now, you may be coming to this video because you're ready to move on with your life and throw out that old thinking pattern. And that's great. Honestly, I applaud you. I praise you for that. A lot of people may have been living with a lot of excuses, and these ideas that because the mind won't let them pass this obstacle, they're not at that point yet where they're ready to change. I've been called several things in life, honestly, as a result of the way that I carry myself. I carry this, I carry being, I carry life. And more recently, I've been called monk, which, alright, for starters, none of these labels I take no offense to. In fact, I take them as a compliment, which is even more difficult to the person who's trying to... I don't think they're trying to offend me. They're just they're trying to come up with a word that will best suit their interest for what it is that I'm trying to portray or display. So, monk is one. Freak of nature. My girlfriend has a tendency of calling me that. And, honestly, for me, I've grown up with the mind of more of an existentialist, and I don't consider it bad. I just consider myself to be just way out there in the universe, way out there in the cosmos, and just being able to really comprehend, break down, and understand things, in a micro level, a microscopic, micromanageable level. Honestly, it's really interesting, and I think that that's also why I'm able to create this long-lasting change in my life, because I'm able to micromanage what's going on, break it apart piece by piece, and realize what's creating the issue in the first place, how the situation turned from really great to absolutely terrible as a result of an action that I decided to indulge in. And this is actually where the transformation takes place, when you're able to look at things like that. It's like a situation where you're addicted to junk food. And because this happens to everyone. This used to happen to me, actually, until I became vegetarian and vegan and all that stuff. Now I'm back and forth between vegetarian and vegan. But what is so interesting about this process is that it's the triggers. And if you could become aware of these triggers, you can ultimately step outside of it, be the observer, and realize, okay, that's what I need to avoid and bypass in order to just basically make my way. And believe me, I think the best way to do this is honestly one day at a time. This is where not only, true change comes from, but recovery. Because a lot of us, we're addicted to a lot of things that we don't even realize. And that is the crazy part. So, implementing this idea into your life, to come to honest change that really has a long-lasting influence on your life. The way to best approach it, and see, the mind right now, the mind wants to say, okay, well, that's difficult, well, that's ridiculous, I don't have enough time for that, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm this, I'm that. Be aware of the labels. Be aware of the labels, the excuses that the unconscious, the habitual, the subconscious mind likes to bring about, just to throw whatever potential progress you could be making down the drain. So, all of these excuses have a tendency to obviously hold us back. You've gone a week without indulging in junk food, a piece of chocolate, and you've gone a week without indulging in it, something that you actually used to indulge in quite frequently. And at the end of the week, the mind says, you've done so good with not indulging in this sweet, addictive junk food. And so then there's another idea that comes in saying, you should reward yourself. If you can become aware of this, realize what you are trying to do, what your intention is, that's the most important part. Nothing else, nothing happens without intention. And so, becoming aware of these voices, that's more so words, becoming aware of these words that are happening, these excuses, and realizing that they are actually just stopping you from furthering your progress in terms of what it is that you're trying to get to, basically. And in that sense, you can come to this place of stillness. It's not below, it's above, actually. We're talking about transcendence right now. We're talking about transcendence. Ending that trance. That's literally what transcendence is. Ending that trance that brings you back into the same old path that you've been trying so much, so hard to get out of. The success doesn't lie in going a week without indulging in something, and then after that week going back into it. Because that's like saying, okay, I don't want to do this, but like I don't want to indulge in this. So I'm not gonna indulge in this for a week, and then after a week I'm gonna go back to it. Why would you go back to something that you don't want to indulge, or something that you're trying to get away from? The reward is not going back to it and indulging in it again. The reward is making that progress. You are deconditioning and reprogramming the mind in this process. And in doing so, you're rewiring the brain to realize that you don't even need these things in the first place. It works, believe me. It's also about not acting on impulse. A lot of people act on impulse when it comes to addiction, something that they've been craving, And during the experience, it may be okay, but then when you're done, it's like, what did I just do? You know? So it's really all about just being present. Being present, being the observer of these thoughts, excuses that are happening subconsciously, unconsciously, and habitually. Breaking it all down, micromanaging it, realizing that if you really want to change it, and when I say really want to change it, I mean like you'll do anything, absolutely anything to change it, because it just needs to be changed. You will take the time and really just pick everything apart. Time management. You'll break down your 24-hour day, and you will. Here I go, get serious again. I feel great, honestly. You will make your schedule your you will set yourself up for success, is what I'm trying to say. You will set your schedule up so that you will be successful. Yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to get at. I guess to feedback a little bit into my personal life. There has been many times, many occasions, frequent occasions that I've so honestly attempted to get away from what it was that I was indulging in visually, just to give an idea, an addiction that I had, that I experienced. I don't really like to say I had, because I don't like to entail it as being something that's a part of me, because it's not. Something that I experienced, so it was an addiction that I experienced. And I was wondering why so many times I was unsuccessful. And I was realizing that there were times that I'd be using